My name's Caleb, a bartender from Sacramento, where the grind of late-night shifts and rowdy patrons had worn me thin. When my buddy Bryce texted about a long weekend at a lake house on Shasta Lake, I didn't hesitate. The promise of 4 nights. Away from the chaos of spilled beers and closing checks was too good to pass up. Bryce, his girlfriend Daniela, her best friend Naomi, and a couple I'd never met, Jake and Marissa, made up our group of 6. We had no agenda beyond unwinding, soaking in the crisp October air, and letting the lake wash away our stress. The plan was simple: arrive Thursday afternoon, leave Monday morning, and fill the days with lazy lake floats and late-night card games. It sounded like the kind of reset I hadn't realized I'd been craving. We pulled up to the Lakehouse just as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in hues of amber and violet. The place was nestled in a secluded cove on the northeast shore of Shasta Lake, far enough from civilization that the nearest neighbor was a distant speck across the water. Pine trees loomed tall, their shadows stretching across the glassy surface of the lake, which reflected the fading light like a mirror. The air carried the sharp scent of pine needles and the faint smokiness of a distant campfire. The house itself was a relic of another era. Wooden walls weathered by years of sun and rain, creaky floorboards that groaned underfoot, and a mismatched collection of furniture that looked like it had been scavenged from a thrift store. The kitchen housed a humming, mustard yellow refrigerator that rattled like it was on its last legs. Out back, a sprawling deck offered a view so breathtaking it forced you to pause. A panorama of still water framed by jagged peaks and endless trees. It was the kind of place that made you feel small, but in a good way, like the world had room to breathe. The first 2 days were everything we'd hoped for. We spent hours floating on the lake, our skin wrinkling under the sun as we drifted on inflatable rafts shaped like flamingos and swans. Burgers sizzled on the grill, filling the air with the savory aroma of charred meat. By night, we gathered around a rickety table for card games, Uno and poker, that grew louder and rowdier with each round of cheap beer and boxed wine. Bryce's Bluetooth speaker cycled through a predictable playlist. Some indie folk, a few overplayed pop hits, and that one song everyone groaned at but secretly sang along to. We swapped half-baked ghost stories, each one more exaggerated than the last, laughing until our sides ached. I teased Bryce for locking his bedroom door that first night, joking that he was scared of a bear sneaking in to steal his pillow. He rolled his eyes, but I caught him slipping a flashlight under his bed the next evening, his face betraying a flicker of unease. On the 3rd morning, I woke early, my head fuzzy from the previous night's wine. The others were still sprawled across couches and beds, snoring through the remnants of our late-night revelry. I craved solitude, so I grabbed a mug of black coffee and wandered down to the dock, the wood cool and damp under my bare feet. The lake was still, its surface a perfect mirror of the pale morning sky. I was about to dip my toes in when something caught my eye, a faded yellow kayak tethered to the far side of the dock. It wasn't ours. The Airbnb listing hadn't mentioned a kayak, and we hadn't seen it when we arrived. My first thought was that it belonged to a neighbor, maybe drifted over in the night. But the rope was taut, freshly knotted, and slick, with water, as if someone had just climbed out and secured it moments ago. Curious, I tugged it closer, the kayak bobbing gently against the dock. It was weathered, its hull scratched from years of use, the kind of rental you'd find at a state park. A small storage hatch sat at the stern, sealed with a rubber lid. I pried it open, expecting a forgotten life vest or a nest of spiders. Instead, I found a single Polaroid photograph, its edges curled and yellowed from moisture. I held it up to the light, squinting to make out the details. The image sent a chill through me. It was us, our group of 6, sprawled on the dock the previous day. I could see the red Solo cups scattered around, Naomi's inflatable swan floating. Nearby, Bryce frozen mid-cannonball, his splash caught in a burst of white foam. The photo had been taken from across the water, near the tree line, at a distance close enough to capture our faces, but far enough that we hadn't noticed. My stomach twisted. Who had been out there, watching us? I slipped the Polaroid into my hoodie pocket, my fingers lingering on its edges. I didn't mention it to the others right away. Maybe it was a prank. Bryce was the type to pull something like this, or maybe I was overreacting. At breakfast, I casually brought up the kayak while flipping bacon in the skillet. Jake shrugged, assuming it was part of the rental. Daniela frowned, saying she hadn't noticed it before. Bryce, distracted by a stack of pancakes, mumbled something about neighbors. No one seemed fazed, so I let it drop, but the unease clung to me like damp clothes. All day, I couldn't stop glancing at the dock. My eyes darted to the tree line, searching for movement, a shadow, a glint of glass, anything. The forest was dense, its pines swallowing the sunlight, and every rustle of leaves felt like a whisper of something watching. That night, we built a fire in the pit on the deck, the flames casting flickering shadows across the wood. Bryce's speaker droned on with his usual playlist, and we roasted marshmallows, the sweet char filling the air. I kept my back to the woods, sipping my beer. Slowly, the Polaroid burning a hole in my pocket. At one point, Daniela went inside for more marshmallows, and I followed, claiming I needed another drink. From the kitchen window, I peered into the darkness. For a moment, I thought I saw a figure, just a flicker of movement near the trees, like someone stepping behind a trunk. My breath caught, but when I blinked, it was gone. I told myself it was the firelight playing tricks, but my pulse didn't believe me. Around midnight, I slipped away to check the dock again. The kayak was gone. Not drifted, gone. The rope, still knotted when I'd checked earlier, now floated slack in the water, its end frayed as if untied in a hurry. The lake was calm, the moon's reflection unbroken except for a faint ripple near the horizon. I scanned the tree line, my heart thudding in my chest, but saw nothing. No paddle, no figure, no kayak. Back inside, I considered waking the others, but stopped myself. What would I say? That a kayak vanished and I was spooked by a photo? Instead, I crawled into bed, the Polaroid tucked under my pillow, and listened to the house creak until dawn. The next morning, I brought up the kayak again. Over coffee, Marissa suggested it belonged to a neighbor who reclaimed it. Bryce shrugged, more focused on his eggs. Naomi said it was probably nothing, but her eyes lingered on the dock a little too long. Their dismissal gnawed at me. Why didn't they care? On our final day, we cleaned the house, packing coolers and stripping beds, the usual end-of-trip routine. I did a final sweep, a habit from closing the bar, checking every corner for forgotten items. As I slid the glass door shut on the deck, something caught my eye, a second Polaroid taped to the inside of the glass. My hands went cold. It was us again, this time around the fire pit from the night before. Bryce in his green hoodie, Naomi, laughing at one of Jake's bad jokes, me holding my beer, my head turned slightly toward the trees, as if I'd sensed something. The angle was closer than the first, the detail sharper, the photographer bolder. I peeled it off the glass, my fingers trembling, and slipped it into my pocket with the first. I didn't tell the others. I couldn't. We locked up, piled into the car, and drove back to Sacramento in near silence. Back home, I keep the Polaroids in a locked drawer, pulling them out late at night when the apartment is quiet. I study the backgrounds, searching for a shadow, a face, anything to explain who was out there. The kayak, the photos, they're just objects, but they carry a weight I can't shake. Someone was watching us, close enough to see our expressions, to hear our laughter. They tied a kayak to our dock without a sound, left pictures for me to find, and returned to do it again. I don't know what they wanted, but I know they weren't just passing through. They chose us, and I can't stop wondering why.